Hi, everyone, and welcome to Education 438, Teaching Reading and Writing in the Content Area. This is your Week 8 overview video. And before we jump in, I just want to say happy Balloon Fiesta Week, happy Fall Break Week, and hopefully you successfully made it through stage one of your unit plan project. So I am going to try to keep this video kind of short. I know I say that every week, and you all are probably like, she's a liar, but my voice has been going on me off and on all day, so I'm going to try to keep it kind of shorter than usual. And if if I lose my voice halfway through, well, I will whisper as loud as I can. So as always, this video is going to provide you with a quick recap of week 7 before diving into our week 8 topics, our week 8 learning objectives, some essential questions to keep in mind as you're reading and watching this week's videos, your videos, readings, assignments, and then some reminders. So, starting off with our week 7 recap, you know that we spent the majority of our time last week on jumping into unit planning. And of course, we did that by using the Understanding by Design framework, which focuses on backwards planning. Um, I didn't actually assign you reading for this, but hopefully, as you were designing your lesson plan, your stage one, for your unit plan, you were thinking about universal design as kind of a philosophical framework for unit planning. And then, of course, we worked on stage one of our unit plans, which involved you choosing content area, grade level, topic, key texts, content and literacy standards, enduring understandings, and essential questions. And hopefully, you really are excited about the text that you chose for this because we're going to be using one of the texts that you chose for your unit plan this week as we delve into some vocabulary activities. So, what were my takeaways last week? It was kind of an interesting week for me because you all were doing the majority of the work. But I actually really enjoyed doing Zoom office hours. I got to talk to you, some of you one-on-one, and I don't typically get to do that in an online class like this. So I thought that was really cool. It also taught me, or at least the Zoom office hours and the email questions I got taught me that I need to be a little bit more explicit about content standards versus literacy standards. So thank you all for helping me kind of work through that. And then I also was kind of I guess really excited to see you all kind of thinking about vocabulary standards as they are embedded in reading and writing standards. So I did get a lot of questions on choosing your vocabulary literacy standard, and a lot of you found that that vocabulary standard is often embedded in other literacy standards related to reading or related to writing. So those were sort of my big takeaways from last week. I'm really excited to dive into your unit plan, stage one projects this week. It will take me a little bit more time than usual, just because I'm really gonna, like I said, trying to give you some good feedback. Though the ones that I've glanced at so far look fantastic, like great start to these unit plans. All right, week 8, what are we doing? We are going to continue our conversation about vocabulary and vocabulary instruction. This is, I don't want to say the last week we're going to spend on vocabulary because everything in this class is intertwined in a lot of ways as we talk about building academic literacy skills. But this is the last week where we're really going to hone in on vocabulary instruction specifically. So we'll be talking about and reading about helping students understand and remember word meanings. We'll be looking at specific activities for building vocabulary comprehension and vocabulary ownership to use the sort of letters readings that we read a couple weeks ago, this notion of owning a word and helping students feel comfortable about that ownership, what that looks like in the secondary classroom. We will select and build vocabulary activities around tier two and tier three words. So we're going to be returning back to that three-tiered system for vocabulary instruction that we spent some time with in week 6. I'm so excited. We're finally going to be delving into multimodal learning and what multimodal instruction looks like in the secondary classroom. This is one of my passions is thinking about multimodal writing and multimodal reading, multimodal vocabulary instruction. So yeah, I'm really excited to dive into that topic with you all this week, especially because we actually have class together. So, our learning objectives. You will continue to explore how to help students understand and remember word meanings through reading a Sears chapter on vocabulary instruction. I know I love Veers. I think Veers all of his work is so beneficial in thinking about academic literacy. So I have attached a PDF from another book he wrote. And this book is going to specifically tackle kind of building reading comprehension. And the chapter that I assigned from it is specifically focused on vocabulary instruction. You will familiarize yourself with a multitude of strategies and activities to use in your secondary classroom to help students develop comprehension of, ease with, and ownership of academic vocabulary. You will understand the importance of multimodal instruction in relation to literacy development and multiple learning styles through a Zoom mini lecture, which I'm going to do on Wednesday, as well as some full class and some breakout room discussions. And then finally, our pod post this week involves connecting what you've learned with tier 2 and tier 3 vocabulary instruction with actual vocabulary strategies and activities for helping students understand and remember words. And I'm also hoping this will help you move towards building vocabulary activities for the next stages of your unit plan. So you're going to demonstrate your ability to do this through completing a pod post that is looking at developing vocabulary activities around a specific text. And I'm going to ask you to utilize one of the texts that you chose for stage 1 of your unit plan. And then I am giving you all a very light reading load this week in hopes that you can fully experience the joys of fall break, whatever that means to you, whether you're hitting up Balloon Fiesta or you've got relatives in town or you're just going to stay home and sleep, whatever that is. I want to give you a little bit of a lighter reading load this week and workload this week so that you can do that. All right, here are some essential questions that I want you, I apologize, that I want you to keep in mind as you are tackling the videos that I've chosen for you this week and the chapter that I've chosen for you to read from Zweers. So, how can we help students use context to build vocabulary skills? That Zweers chapter is really going to tackle this question. According to Zweers, what are the do more and the do less norms for vocabulary instruction? How can we meaningfully select tier 1 and tier 3 vocabulary words from a central text? So how do we determine which words are essential to begin with in a text? What are some dynamic activities we can use to teach these words so that students comprehend them and feel a level of ownership over them? Why is multimodal instruction so essential? How does it speak to diverse learners and diverse styles of learning? And how might we draw on multimodality to teach vocabulary? So some reminders, we do have a required Zoom meeting this Wednesday. We're going to be focusing on multimodal learning for that Zoom meeting. And also, you will have a pod group post that is due this coming Sunday by midnight. So I also want to just point out a couple things about that pod post and this week's readings and activities and lessons. So as always, your topics, your objectives, this video will be on this overview page. You'll notice that your reading and viewing is broken up to a page that's available under this week's module. I'm going to show it to you in a sec, as well as a PDF I've attached here. That's the chapter from Zweers, that I've been talking about. The link to our required Zoom meeting is here. And then, of course, pod post due, like I said, this coming Sunday. We do have a pretty heavy reading load for week 9. So if you want to use some of fall break to get ahead, we're going to be switching to one of our other texts for this course, which is called A Close Look at Close Reading, and then utilizing Getting to the Core of Literacy, a text that we used earlier in the semester, once again. So here is the page that I told you I want you to read and interact with this week as well. This is going to be a page on vocabulary instruction continued. So you'll notice here that I have 2 videos for you to watch, one on explicit vocabulary instruction and one on tier 2 vocabulary instruction, and then some optional but highly recommended videos as well. I did a very, very short and brief intro to multimodal learning here. This will kind of prep you for the longer, more in-depth lecture and discussion we'll have about multimodal learning on Wednesday's Zoom. And here is, of course, that PDF by Zweers that I mentioned, and of course, our pod post for the week. So I'm really excited about this pod post. Everything is connected, like I said in here. And so I'm going to ask you to choose one of the texts that you selected as a central text for stage one of your unit plan. And then from this text, I'm going to ask you to select 4 tier 2 words and 2 tier 3 words that you believe are important for students to understand in order to comprehend the text. And so if you are kind of like, oh my gosh, that was 2 weeks ago, I don't really remember the difference between tier 2 and tier 3 words, please return to week 6 material just for a refresher on that. So your pod post, you want to include your content area, grade level, your unit topic. So this is everything that you already have in stage one of your unit plan, right? And then I want you to choose one of your selected texts, list the title and author here. And then of course your tier 2 words and your tier 3 words. So the bulk of your pod post will be thinking about choosing 2 activities that you could use to help students support learning and retaining the vocabulary you've selected. So you can use the letters readings from week 6. There were some activity suggestions in there. Or the Zvere's chapter from this week has a ton of different strategies and activities you can use for vocabulary development. So I want you to describe in detail how you would use these 2 activities in your classroom. How would you group students independently, in pairs, small group, as a whole? What questions would you ask to help students explain or describe the terms? Might you use graphic organizers? So just really dig into the 2 activities that you choose that you can see being beneficial in teaching your tier 2 and tier 3 words. I promise it's going to help you in later stages of your unit plan. Then I want you to think about multimodal learning. How would you embed multimodal learning into these 2 activities or into your vocabulary instruction? What images might you provide? How can you make the learning tactile or kinesthetic? How can you appeal to auditory oral learners? How will you engage reading or writing learners? So specific answers here, the more specific, the better. So your pod post itself will be due on the 12th by midnight. And then, of course, your responses to your peers will be due the following week on the 19th. So a note about pod posts, we're getting close to the end of our pod post journey here in this class. We have one more pod post after this and responses to our pod post peers. And then we're moving into an inquiry project. And then, of course, our stage 2 and stage 3 of our unit design. So try to keep up with these pod posts. Try to make sure that you're responding to your peers. They aren't worth a ton of points, but I promise they do add up. So just staying on top of it as much as you can. All right, I'm going to stop my share. I managed to retain my voice through this. I do apologize if there were any typos in the lecture or, like I said, if I mistook it all. I've been kind of under the weather all weekend. I'm really hoping it goes away because I want to enjoy fall break as well. So thank you all who attended optional Zoom office hours last week. I really, like I said, enjoyed getting to talk to people one-on-one. And I look forward to seeing all of you this Wednesday at 5 p.m. on Zoom. All right, everyone. I hope you have a great start to the week, and I will see you very, very soon.